Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular council meeting of September 4th, 2019. Following the Pledge of Allegiance, the next item would be approval of the agenda. Council, I do have something I want to discuss kind of either before or following approval of the agenda. Has to do with our workshop with Mr. Van Vleck back on the whatever it was, 14th or 16th. And I'll get into it a little more as we might get to matters from the mayor, but so let's pass that down. Just briefly what it is.
Is Audrey coming, or does she have one?
I don't know if she'll be here. I can hand one down there if you want, but she's held up in traffic or something. Anyway, what it is, Mr. Van Vleck came down and gave us a parliamentary training and like how to work our meetings and stuff. And so I just want to touch on a couple things. You'll be seeing it, members of the audience, more of it as we go through, but we're going to try to redo how we work our meetings just a little bit. At the request of the public, town staff, and members of the governing body, in order to expedite business and conduct a more efficient, orderly meeting, the guidelines listed below will be followed at Edgewood Town Council meetings. And guidelines for the public is asked to remain silent throughout the meeting so all attendees can hear what is being said. That was one issue we had. There was a lot of crosstalk and people couldn't hear stuff. So we would ask your indulgence to try to remain as silent as you can through the meetings. The public will be heard from only at public comment, which is limited to 2 minutes per individual. And if a member of the governing body wishes to hear from a member of the public seated in the audience, the mayor will ask the remainder of the governing body whether they wish to hear from the individual. If there is an objection, the member of the public will not be heard from. The public is encouraged to contact members of the governing body prior to the meeting to express their opinions and concerns, which will enable the governing body to achieve its purposes and expedite business. Of course, without saying, cursing, name-calling, and any type of verbal abuse will not be tolerated. If the recording devices used by the public are interfering with the quality of the sound of the meeting, those devices will be required to be turned off. For the governing body, things that were brought up is the presiding officer, mayor or mayor pro tem, controls access to the floor. It is out of order to speak unless granted the floor except for point of order and certain privileged motions. And for each action item on the agenda, the first utterance from a counselor will be the statement of a motion enabling this discussion to stay focused on the action to be decided. There is no need to obtain the floor to second the motion. And when a motion that is in order has been moved and seconded, the chair formally places the question before the assembly by stating the question, i.e. the chair states the exact motion and indicates that it is open to debate. Traditionally, the person making the motion initiates discussion and debate on the matter at hand. Debate discussion must be confined to the question before the body. All debate must be addressed to the presiding officer and not to the members. Debate must be confined to the question before the body. One member should not interrogate another member or person speaking from the public except through the chair. The presiding officer or the body may set reasonable time limits in debate. Time may be extended or limited upon a motion of the body. It is the right of every member who notices a breach of the rules to insist on their enforcement, thereby calling upon the chair for a ruling and enforcement. And for the public, our council meeting minutes, for verbatim council meeting minutes, please access the audio recorded at each meeting and posted to the town's website. Per the Municipal League Attorney, the written transcript of the meeting minutes need only identify attendance of the governing body members and a record of votes taken on action items. Names of individuals speaking during public comments will no longer be recorded in the minutes. So for members of the public, basically what that means is if you looked at the meeting minutes from August 14th, you've already seen how that's been switched to where we acknowledge that public got up and spoke, but we don't go into any detail about what it is they spoke about. So we're going to try these things and see if we can run a quicker, smarter, better meeting and get through it in a timely enough fashion that everybody goes home satisfied. So with that said, I will entertain a motion to approve the balance of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and approved to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council. Next item is consent agenda, and before I entertain a motion on that, I would ask council to pull item D for some discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve our consent agenda for the evening, holding off item D for discussion.
Second.
Some discussion. I would like to have item A pulled. There are a few items that need to be corrected in the minutes.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion.
We've got a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda with removal of the item A, Town Council meeting minutes for August 14th. There's some work that needs to be done on that. And then also item D is pulled for some further discussion. We can probably pass it after I explain it. Anyway, that would be items B and C. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? So we passed B and C, withdrew A. Okay, council, so what it is on D is clearly you've got two calls for public hearing ordinance, same thing, 2019-03. Ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance, the subdivision ordinance. What it should have read was call for a public hearing ordinance 2019-4, and ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance 2018-08, the zoning ordinance of the town of Edgewood. This doesn't mess up our timetable for hearing them in October, but I wanted you to know that there was a mistake made there. It's not two subdivision ordinances. One is subdivision ordinance amendment, and another is zoning ordinance amendment. So with that said, I will then entertain a motion to approve item D with that change.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve item D, changing ordinance number 2019-03 to 2019-04, and ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance 2018-08, the zoning ordinance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve item D on the consent agenda with the change of ordinance 2019-03 to 2019-04 and replacing ordinance 2018-08, the subdivision ordinance with zoning ordinance. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you, council. Okay, that brings us to discussion items. First one up is wastewater collection system expansion project wrap-up. Cody Sipes from Smith Engineering.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Excuse me. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity. We're finally got the final budget amendment in to wrap up the project, and we can close out the wastewater expansion project, our contract. Certainly, you guys will have some work on it in the future. There's a lot of work to be done yet, but for our part, we did have a final amendment that reduced our contract for items that weren't used in our time and materials services, and those two items are environmental and permitting were reduced, and electrical engineering were reduced. So our final contract excluding New Mexico, or NMGRT, was $654,886.55. I provided a budget summary that kind of details what our current contract was and then what our adjusted amount was. And then at the end, on the second page of it, I had an overall understanding of what I thought, my understanding of what the budget was for the project. So there I list the three funding sources you had was capital outlay money, which totaled $1.28 million. And then the professional services, the original contract, our original contract was $651,735.36. And through 5 amendments, we only had an increase of $3,000, $151. So through the project, we were able to pretty much stay on budget and stay on track, I felt, even for the additional work we added on the Route 66 area. And then I also summarized what we had for the Phase 1 construction project. So when you look at the construction Phase 1, the professional services, and the original funding available, you guys do have a balance left in those capital outlay grants of roughly $23,000. I imagine that Carla's probably looking at these numbers to see if they match her records also. But I think for the most part, I do want to thank you guys again for letting us do this work. And if there's any questions or any way we can be of any service, just let me know.
I have a quick question.
Council have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I know at one point we had discussed hooking up the police department and the community center. Was that part of the changes? Has that been done?
My understanding is that the NMED would not allow the town to pay for that with the capital outlay funding or incorporate it into our contract.
Okay, thank you.
We did provide a proposal for it, but
All right, thank you very much.
no problem.
Any other questions, council? Staff have any questions for Mr. Sipes? Thank you, Cody.
Okay, thank you guys again.
That brings us to the next item on the agenda, public comment on general matters. First up tonight, we have Ray Seegers, I guess.
I'm not going to bore you tonight. I like those short meetings you were talking about.
Yeah, right. Okay, then the next one would be Jerry Powers.
My name is Jerry Powers. I live here in Edgewood, and I guess I have a question regarding where do we get copies of these ordinances that we're going to have public hearings on, so we can review them before?
They're on the website.
They're on the website? Not on
The changes.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to make a comment about, I know that there's something coming up on the public hearing. I guess I can comment on that, on the business license under that section.
Mm-hmm.
And then regarding the new rules with regard to public input, I guess I have the kind of the general feeling that those are more designed to discourage public input than they are to run an orderly meeting. The meetings seem pretty orderly to me. I'm really in favor of open government and a democracy where people really need to be able to be heard and to get informed about what's really happening. If I heard correctly, there's a new rule that if somebody on the council objects to somebody in the community being heard, that they won't be heard. Is that correct?
Pretty much. In other words, it's up to the body here to, if they want to hear the people out there just spontaneously.
Oh,
In a
and
public
as
hearing,
opposed-
you have an opportunity to speak.
And then
Public
also-
comment, you have
Okay.
an opportunity to speak.
I got you.
But just speaking from there on any range of subjects you want, we're trying to cut that off.
Okay. So somebody spontaneously responding to somebody in the, on the council would not be allowed?
Well, at a given time, it's all right, but just, like we've had before here, where people just shout stuff out,
Oh, I see. I see.
that's out of order.
Okay, well, I just want to go on record saying I think it's better to have more open and warm and informative meetings than it is to have harsh and oppressive kind of rules. I understand rules are necessary to run a meeting, but I just want to go on the record saying that because I think that's the best way for the public.
2 minutes. Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who hasn't signed up who would like to sign up? Ms. Burke?
Sorry, I missed the sign up. Hi, I'm Linda Burke with the Greater Edgewood Area Chamber. I do have a question regarding the new rules on speaking. If we're asked to speak with counselors in advance of a meeting on a subject to express our thoughts, does that put us or the council in a position of having a rolling quorum when we talk to, if we were to talk to every member of a council?
I think that applies to people on the council, you talking to somebody, or you can send an email or something to the whole council.
Okay. All right. And then I did just want to bring to your attention that we have our monthly networking meeting coming up at the Chamber on September 19th at the Credit Union as a lunch meeting. And we have Bustin' Clays going on this month, so we would like to invite all of you to come and participate in that. And I will leave some postcards over here by the door for anyone who wants them.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Louis Abraham, Moriarty Road. As this previous gentleman spoke of, being able to say what needs to be said and controlling the people's voices from out here, I want to be assured that that the mayor and Councilor Abrams will also hold their tongues as it has to do with other councilors, and that they will be shown dignity in the future and there'll be no more outburst. Thank you.
Anybody else who didn't sign up wish to speak? Okay, seeing none. That then brings us to matters from the councilors. Councilor Jaramillo's not here. We'll start with Councilor Abraham.
Okay, I've been on vacation, so I don't really have a whole lot to say. I am kind of curious as to the future of our terms, being that the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional for the district attorneys to have lengthened their terms. So I guess, are we going to be getting updates on that? Are some changes going to be coming? Are we still planning on doing what we have been doing?
Haven't heard anything to tell us any different.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Abrams.
I don't have a whole lot this evening. I am happy to see that we are starting the public hearing process for moving the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance and the changes between the two of them forward. I think it's high time that we, as a community, begin building a little bit more of our infrastructure here to support what we need to build as far as a community is concerned. What I'm talking about is, if you haven't read these ordinance changes, light industry. Bringing that into our community is going to bring in the kinds of tax base that we need to build roads, to build swimming pools, and all of the other amenities that I've heard about for the last 20 some odd years. So I hope you all take the time to go through it. It has been a very long, very thorough, very well done process for bringing this new change forward. And I'm very thankful to our Planning and Zoning Commission and to everybody in our Planning and Zoning Department who's worked on this. It's been quite quite a ordeal and a long time coming. I really do appreciate it. The only other thing I'm going to say is I really do appreciate the new lawnmowers, weed mowers, weed whackers, clearing off the edges of some of our roads and beginning to make the changes that we need there to get things cleared off and a little bit more safe for pedestrians and equestrians and other people. Some of us ride bicycles on these roads too, so definitely appreciate that, and I still want to see that trail go all the way out. I'll stop right there.
Thank you, Counselor. Holly?
I do want to mention that last month I participated in a bus tour by First Choice. The board members were all put on a bus, and we went and visited their 9 locations in 3 counties. So it was an all-day event. And I do want to acknowledge, when we stopped here at Edgewood, many of the board members had not yet seen the new clinic, and I want to thank the people of this community and our county, in addition to our administration and this council, for the support that they lent to get that new building constructed. We are all acknowledged in the lobby there on a nice plaque. And I'll let the mayor speak to another acknowledgement at that building. And finally, I just want to say I really appreciated the parliamentary procedure workshop that was afforded us last month. It included not only the governing body here, but also the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I do think these new guidelines will help us to have more efficient meetings. So indulge us as we kind of work through the process, and we may have to tweak things as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Jaramillo, welcome. We're in matters from the counselors.
Okay, thank you. Traffic was no fun.
Tell me about it.
Is it, okay, my turn,
Good,
okay,
yeah.
thank you. So I did want to mention the New Mexico Municipal League annual conference that we went to. There were 3 of us there, and the conference was very good. It was in Las Cruces, very informative. I do have information, one on the update on para. So there was a lot of good information on that, statistics, and just showing the unfunded portion of para and how law enforcement and some of the funds are funded better than others, let's put it that way, and the municipalities are funded the second best. So the governor does have a task force with some recommendations, but the Municipal League will, of course, be representing us in hopefully being able to segregate out some of that to where we aren't holding the burden for the other types of agencies, such as the state agencies that are not funded as well as we are. So that class was very good. Also had a class on fraud that went over the Dixon, Illinois case, where there was a finance director or clerk position where she, it was called All the Queen's Horses, and she had stolen $54 million over the course of 20 years. So that was very fascinating to me in what I do. So there was that. I did want to announce I have this Saturday a volunteer appreciation kind of cookout and dinner. So if any of you guys are all invited, I don't know if you're able to come or not. There was supposed to be an email that came out, but to my home for that, and just appreciation of, I was just really impressed with all of the volunteer hours that the library has had, and want to recognize that. Let's see. I also was grateful that Randy Van Vleck came out and did training for us on the parliamentary procedures, and Mayor, Councilor Hawley, and I attended, as well as those from P&Z, some of them from P&Z. And I think that we all learn some things that maybe we weren't doing exactly correct that we can always improve upon, including myself, of course. So you'll probably notice some changes in the way that we run the meetings. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Next item then is matters from the Clerk Treasurer, Mr. Torres.
Mayor, Council, so make this short tonight. Thank you, or congratulations to our Molly graduates. That was a long ordeal you guys went through, so congratulations, and hopefully that'll help you lead the town, in the future. The other thing I have for you is we're obtaining quotes from state contract and CES contract for design build for the solar on the wastewater. So as soon as we get those quotes in, we'll get a budget adjustment for you so we can move forward on that to put the solar on the building. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
so if I have a question for Juan, do I address you?
You do.
Okay. I would like to address Mr. Torres about the police department and the community center hooking them up to our wastewater plant. Is that going to happen since Enemy denied using this money? Is that still a plan we're hoping to do?
I believe it is a plan we're still looking to do. That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes, Mayor, Council, that is correct. So we are still trying to find a way to allow NMED to use the funding, but it's one of those, we have to complete everything that they request before they'll grant us, permission to do so. If not, we will request that you guys let us use it out of our capital funding for the actual pipe and for us to make the connection ourselves.
Aren't we obligated by our ordinance to connect if it's there?
We are. We're just trying to hammer down the funding source.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, Mr. Torres, I have a question. A couple of meetings ago, I had asked about the legal expenses that were around $14,000, I believe, and you were going to check into that. Just wanted to get the answer on that one.
Mayor, Council, I do apologize. I completely spaced it. I will get that to you, email it to you tomorrow.
Okay. And then just a comment, I do have collected policies and procedures from other municipalities. I know that's a work in process, but if there's any time in the next couple weeks that we can meet on that would be good.
Is that it? Next item then is matters from the mayor. And so, Counselor Harmil, you missed this. I read this off here. I think you got a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
That was some of the stuff we've taken down during Mr. Van Vleck's visit here. Basically, to the people that would like to see more free-ranging meetings and stuff, I think that's what we had. I did a lot of time in those seats in my day, and I know the burden of trying to get your point across in that. But we did have quite a few complaints to us come in after some of the previous meetings this past summer. And so as we talked to Mr. Van Vleck, these were suggestions he made to us. We do owe it to the public and to ourselves and staff and everybody to try to make a more orderly meeting. And so that's what the guiding idea is behind this. Public can be heard again at public comment and during public hearings, stuff like that. That hasn't changed. As far as the governing body, things like that, we just, need to move stuff along and tend to the business. I think what Mr. Van Vleck kind of impressed on us was this is our chance to meet as a body here and do the public's work, and we need to maintain control of it and get our work done without descending into some of the stuff that we've seen around here. And I think these are reasonable things to try. As Councilor Holly said, we'll work on it. It's a little bit of a work in progress, and we will try to come to a place where everybody's happy with the result. Amelia, do you have that video to show the public there? Y'all seen the tractor and mower sitting out here? James has been working diligently to get it up and working. And he's mostly got it done. He was out trying it there in front of Dairy Queen the other day, and I think that's going to be a great addition to our fleet. You were wondering about that, Counselor Abrams, about mowing. I think this rig here will help us get a lot of stuff done a lot quicker. I hope so. That's state surplus, but it seems like it's a pretty good rig, and we have had to get some things bought for it to get it working right, but I think it's going to be a good addition. Another item we have is our upcoming open house, 20th anniversary celebration. We have invitations here. It's set for September 20th here at the Town Hall. It'll be from 4 to 6 p.m. You can also go out and check out the other facilities, the new library, police department over at the old fire station there by the community center, animal control down here, and the municipal court. Everybody's going to have the place opened up, and you'll be able to tour through them and talk to the people inside. And then they're going to move out here, and there'll be some, I guess there's going to be some cake and some, a lot of people are invited here, previous council members and mayors, stuff like that. Anyway, that'll be coming off on the 20th at 6 p.m. here at the Town Hall. Next item we have is a couple things that came our way. 2020 Best School Districts. And several of our local facilities got into it. There's East Mountain High School's number 4, best public high school, excuse me, in the Albuquerque area. Edgewood Middle School, number 7, best middle school in the Albuquerque area. Stanchia Valley Classical Academy, number 7, best charter high school in the Albuquerque area. South Mountain Elementary School was number 8, best public elementary school in the Albuquerque area. And overall, the Moriarty Edgewood School District was ranked the number 3 best school district in the Albuquerque area. So that speaks well of our schools and their facilities out here. If you see a member of the school board or anything, why, give them a pat on the back for it. And of course, all our hardworking teachers and everybody that goes to these schools and makes them what they are. I think that speaks well for our East Mountain area. And as Councilor Holly alluded to, we did go, I got called over there, they had lunch served. When they were having their bus tour through all their different facilities, they did stop out here. And after the lunch, and they were some people talking and discussing that new facility there. And that was the board members of First Choice, of which Councilor Holly is a member, and former Councilor Ring, he was a member of that. But anyway, they really liked what they saw, and they do want to try to move on to the next phase with that wellness center if they can get it done. But anyway, they unveiled a plaque over there in the hallway outside the multipurpose room. And it basically says on it, "This space is dedicated in special recognition and profound appreciation of Charles Ring, board member, for his commitment to the wellness of the communities that we serve, First Choice Community Healthcare Incorporated." So Chuck was honored with a plaque there. And as Councilor Hawley said, there's several other plaques around in there with people's names that contributed to that effort. But kudos to Councilor Ring. If a fellow leaves this world without too much to show for it, he's got that First Choice Health Clinic out there, and I think it speaks pretty clearly of the quality of the man and the efforts he put out for the town. So if you see Counselor Ring, give him a pat on the back. He could use it. That's about it for me. It's, like I say, the 20th anniversary coming up, and that new tractor out there, it's not new, but new to us. And look for James out and about on it. I hope he can get around and mow your neighborhood.
Mr. Mayor, one question.
What's that?
One question. Have we, or are we going to post public notice of possible quorum for September 20th?
Yes, we'll have to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, that done. The next item is action items. And counselors, this is one of them instances where we will attempt to try these new rules out and see how they work for us. Anyway, the first item up is a public hearing on discussion and action on ordinance 2019-02, an ordinance adopting business registration fee, providing for registration for all businesses, provided for enforcement and imposing business license fees, which would repeal and replace ordinance 2011-01. Okay, first thing up is request certification that public notice of this hearing by the governing body has been posted as required.
It was.
This is a legislative public hearing called for purpose of considering adoption of ordinance 2019-02, an ordinance adopting a business registration fee, providing for registration of all businesses, providing for enforcement, and imposing business license fees. The requirements for a legislative procedure differ from quasi-judicial procedures in several important respects. Members of the governing body may conduct their own research into the proposed ordinance. They may consult with members of the public outside the meeting and may advocate for personal opinions and/or those of constituents. The concern is that this hearing be fair in form and substance, and to that end, all public input and governing body deliberations will primarily consist of remarks about the proposed ordinance. References to historical and/or the legal context are appropriate so long as they are clearly related to items in the proposed ordinance. Furthermore, all discussion will be offered in a manner which is consistent with the Town of Edgewood's adopted resolution for conducting business. All persons wishing to give public input concerning the provisions of ordinance number 2019-02 being considered for adoption tonight are not required to be sworn in, since adoption of an ordinance is a legislative matter. For those of you wishing to give public input, your input should be confined to the issue at hand and limited in length so as to allow for other speakers to comment as well. Okay. Who's going to present tonight on
I am.
this? Okay, go ahead up to the, or you got a microphone there? Either way. Give us a little background on this, Tanya.
Well, we hadn't had an update for quite some time, so we went through and we're looking at things, because on some of the things we had so many like nonprofits we had business license for, and churches, and so we started looking at everything and decided that we would go through and update it. There was quite a few grammatical errors that we changed and fixed. The first thing is crossing out something that's redundant in letter A. Basically, that first sentence explains that anybody who is conducting a business for profit, not for fundraising, basically, will need a CRS number and a business license. We took out the part where it says nonprofit organizations, clubs, blah, 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 will not be required to pay a registration fee. But that didn't say that they didn't have to come in and fill out a business license. So we really don't need that. If we're not going to charge them a fee, we really don't need them to come in and do all that and the confusion from it. So we took that part out. Anything in red was a change. In D, all business acts described above constitute the purchase of a business license. The next change was itinerant vendors, which may or may not have a CRS number, must pay an additional fee of $25. Section 5 didn't have any type of a title, so we put notification of CRS non-compliance. We also added Section 11 corrections, which is pretty typical for having that in all ordinances. And then in Exhibit A, we took out all of the exemptions from the business license fee, everything that was listed there, because there's really no need to list 8 things when you could list 500 things. So just not having anything in there at all kind of made more sense to us. But it's pretty simple changes. Do you have any questions?
Council have any questions for Ms. Mortensen?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. In Section 3, that change that you made for itinerant vendors, why must they pay an additional fee of $25?
Well, I think the wording here may be incorrect. Itinerant vendors don't normally have a CRS number, and I think that they should pay an additional fee because they're not paying taxes. So we're not getting any gross receipts from them if they're not paying any taxes. So an additional fee, if they don't have a CRS number, would make sense.
Okay, and that probably needs to be reworded, okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How did we come up with one time a year? In Section C, it says one time a year for profit. Could we do like 2 to 4, based upon, like, we do some craft shows and some, different kinds of things like that to create community? I'm thinking of like the Arts Alliance show, some of the things that Wildlife West does, his harvest festivals, those kinds of things. If you're going to come only once a year, you don't need a license, but if you do it twice a year, can we look at maybe 2 to 4?
Sure, if you guys want to make that change,
Or
we
something
can.
like that. And then I did have a question too about the same thing Counselor Hawley had a question about, and that is, how often are they going to have to pay this $25 fee?
Once
Like
a year.
every time? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So, council, if you, I don't know, have any suggestions on that itinerant vendors language?
Mr. Mayor, I do. Itinerant vendors do not have a CRS number must pay an additional fee. Just take out the which may or may not and replace it with do not have. If they have a CRS number, they're paying taxes.
Right.
Or they should be paying taxes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
One more
ma'am.
things. First page, Section C, where you give a definition of person, you go on to say any individual, male or female. Can we strike that? Can we just say any individual, estate, trust, receiver?
Sure. Yeah, that was old language. We can definitely strike
Okay.
that.
And then under Section 1, paragraph D, your red text, I think probably, correct me if I'm wrong, a better word would be all business acts described above require the purchase of a business license rather than constitute.
Linda had the same thing. Okay,
That's all, thank you.
all right.
Mr. Mayor, one more.
Yes, ma'am.
Ordinance at the top is misspelled. Now I'm done.
Spell check.
It doesn't catch capitalization.
How about item C on that first page?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I I do believe from our training that we are supposed to have a motion before we start discussing.
Well, that will come when this is a public hearing. We were discussing that today. I guess the thing to do is kind of go over it and then, open it to public, and then close that off and ask for a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, so, Counselor, so I guess the way we did the agenda was kind of our old way we've done it. So the future would be, under action items, we would have the public hearing, and then at the very end would be the approval of the actual.
The actual
and so that's-
action item.
Yeah, the actual action item. So we'll start doing that as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
So back to C there. Any change you want to make on that one time a year?
Oh, yeah.
I would like to see it 2 to 4.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
on that, I'm just trying to understand from Counselor how you would apply 2 to 4.
I'm just saying, I would like to see it be 2 times a year or 4 times a year. I would like to just have a larger number there, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So like twice a year or quarterly or, I think 1 time a year is,
I don't think, Counselor Abraham, it's limiting them to 1 time a year. I think it's saying if they do anything more than once a year, that they qualify as
needing a business license.
needing a business license. Is that correct, Tanya?
Yes, that is correct.
So in other words, it says if they just do it more than just once a year, they need a business license.
Okay, so let's say I have 2 garage sales a year. Does that mean I need a business license?
No, we wouldn't go after garage sales. That would be, we would need a lot of time. And, no.
Okay. And so, like, the vendors that come for, some of the, the Fall Festival, the Harvest Festival, if they come to Wildlife West more than once, they would need to come in and apply?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, it's hard to catch all the itinerant vendors because some of these things happen on the weekends. We're not going to work on the weekends to catch them, but the ones that are, out off of the street daily, definitely.
And then what is the penalty if they, other than we make them pay this $25?
It's basically that, but if it's, if we approach them and say, hey, by the way, you need to have a business license or, whatever we put in place here, if they don't and they continue to sell, then we can cite them
Okay.
into court, which would
Because
cost
this-
them more money.
Right, and,
Yeah.
and this was something that I talked to Carla about years ago, is having something like this so that the people who are selling on the corner are not able to sell cheaper than the people who are trying to have a business and selling the
Exactly.
same kind of things, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it is a public hearing. If the council has no more questions, anybody from the public wish to come up and speak to this? Come on up. Just state your name for the record.
Raymond Siggers, I'm a local businessman here in the Edgewood area. And I'm confused in paragraph, it's C, and in D, because it speaks of the location of a business, and I'm looking at the unintended consequences that come to me when you pass an ordinance like this and don't make some exemptions. For instance, for a contractor building a new house, there will be 30 trades involved in the building of that house coming and going from all over the place whose business is not located here. They might do it 1, 2, 5 times in a year. And are we requiring every person, the drywall man, the plumber, the electrician, and all that cadre of people that will be building a house here, are we going to require each of them to have a $25 license, which would get up to about $800, $900 by the time you get every trade involved, if they're different trades? Or should we not have some kind of exemption here, or clarify that the general contractor might be the person that gets the business license, but that all the trades that come in behind him would not be required to have additional business licenses?
Staff want to speak to that?
I'll say something. You know, interestingly enough, when I first came aboard, the hotel was just wrapping up. And I don't know if the town required it, because I wasn't here at the time, but I know Mr. McCall required all of the people working at the hotel to come in and get a business license. So at the tail end, that included his pool guy. And I don't think that we went after him that way. I don't think we encouraged that, but I know he required everyone working on that project to come in and get a business license with the town. So I don't, it's not in the ordinance, but I know some construction companies have done it. EBCA, I think, did it when they built their school. They required everyone working on the school to come in and get a business license. But we haven't enforced that, as far as I know.
No.
Well, Mayor, Council, so with our projects, same thing, all of our generals are requiring all of their subs to bring it in. I think that's just kind of standard practice. When they come into a municipality and they're going to be doing any substantial work, they require their subs to get the business license. I mean, I guess that's kind of, for a lack of a better word, I mean, that's how municipalities collect their pound of flesh. I mean, with Mr. Seeger saying with like the drywaller, for instance, I mean, hopefully that drywaller is going to come back to the town and do multiple jobs within the town when they're building, and are we just going to give them all a free pass? I mean, that's completely up to you guys, but most municipalities, I don't believe they exempt anyone, doing work within their municipal boundaries along that nature. I mean, some municipalities definitely have exemptions, the nonprofits, things of that nature, but all the for-profit stuff, they usually try and get the business license from.
Well, I'm not implying, I'm implying that in a small job, we're talking about a $6 million hotel.
Yeah.
That might be one thing, and that might even have something to do with the insurance problems that the general or the owner might have. But when we're talking about building a house, you could have a $500 contractor. That's all he does. He does a certain thing, okay? And it seems to me that it would be wise and be business friendly and help us build houses out here and grow our population a little, to be business friendly to home builders and those type of things. You're not going to make a bunch of money for the town. I'm sure that's not our goal here, but anyway, you're going to make a lot of hassle running 20 and 30 contractors in who have a place of business someplace else and require each of them that does work on every single house. I suggest, if anything, the general contractor, be required, and maybe we'd be considered less business on friendly then. The other thing that was brought up is this one-time exemption that you get on Chamber of Commerce sponsored, town sponsored, business expos, these kind of things. If we have a successful, and we've had several business expo where people come in and 100 vendors come in and sit down, at a very successful thing, and there are little people and very few big contractors, mostly small folks that are doing a bunch of things. And if we've had one super successful one, a lot of people came, there was some networking going on. I don't know if anybody sold anything at the expo, okay? But now are you going to require, it's not clear to me, that if we had a second one of those in a year, you're there for the second time, therefore you're not exempt under the one-time exemption. And shouldn't we, have exemptions in this? If the town sponsors an event where it would be nice to have vendors come and go, I mean, if you had a great expo for business and
Mr.
trying to
Seegers,
drum
if I
up
might,
gross receipts.
Where is this one-time exemption at?
Well, basically, anything you do on earth for profit, you can do one time, and then you have to get a business license. But the town-sponsored, chamber-sponsored events, if we had 2 or 3 of those a year, the question is, do you construe that to mean all those people that come to those expos might have to buy a $25 business license just to bring their wares?
Every time they come, if they came 3 times a year, no. If they got a business license, it's good for a whole year.
No, I'm talking about people that would come here to our expos, not necessarily located here. Their business would be from South 14. Many people came to the last one we had.
So itinerant vendor.
You know, so those folks come to that expo, and are we going to charge them for coming? If they come once, they don't have to get a business license, and if they come twice, they do in a year.
I guess, and I'm sorry, I guess I would argue that people coming to a business expo, even businesses, aren't, the primary goal of that is not for them to make a profit, it's for them to get exposure. So I guess it would be covered under, it says if it's a business engaged in making, whose primary thing is to make a profit. I guess my argument would be, and we've never done this with expos or events, so we've never gone after people to get a business license. But I guess my argument from their side would be, that's not our primary thing that we're doing there.
Right.
It's primarily an informational gathering event. So what I do in the events I put on is I give the vendors our tax number and say, if you have any sales, please report it to this tax number. But beyond that, I don't do anything else. I just basically give them the code, the tax code for the town of Edgewood, and I say, if you have any sales, please report your sales under this tax number.
Right.
And again, I don't see this one-time exemption. That one time, as I said before, that's if you do business once, you qualify to get a business license. And to your theory on the plumbers and that, if they were working for somebody, it's reasonable to figure he'd have them come out on more than just one home.
Well, no.
And
got
we
lots
have
of
a
people
services
that do
only.
one home. We got lots
What's
of
that?
people that do
Services only
3 or
on the
4 or
business.
5 a year. But, you know, you have to bid on these. We have to have a supply of contractors from Albuquerque because we don't have everybody here that does this sort of thing. And it seems burdensome to require that, but you can have the general have his business license because he's building a house here, but let his subs come and go. I think it's an onerous burden and makes us look non-business friendly.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to it? Linda?
Linda Burke with Greater Edgewood Area Chamber. I definitely want to say that as a community, we want to stay business friendly. We want to have businesses come here. We want to have the smaller businesses want to grow their businesses here because those ultimately are what become the larger businesses in a community most of the time. So I'm glad to hear that the nonprofit segment is not covered in, and it doesn't require a specific exemption because they are nonprofit. They are the fabric of our community, and we don't want to start pulling on that thread. So that is, I think, a good thing. I agree in item C that 1 time per year is a little stringent. I would recommend maybe 4 times a year so that things can happen quarterly because our goal is to keep things happening in the community year-round. And that would certainly allow for those short-time people that are coming to an expo and crafts fairs where they actually are selling here in the community, but maybe, you know, they're very small and they're only coming into the community because there's a big event like the Celtic Festival or something going on at Wildlife West. And having those vendors come to those events are what draw the community out for those events. So it is a significant and symbiotic kind of a relationship. There's value in allowing that without a $25 fee. I'm glad to hear that the town is not considering working on weekends to go after garage sale people and people who park cars in front of their house with a for sale sign. I do think that that's important. I am wondering about some of the temporary locations. They do tend to be out there on the weekends. The gentleman who likes to park at Mr. Gas and and other locations around town. Those type of people really ought to have a business license of some sort to level the playing field with our brick and mortar businesses in town that are, when they come regularly like that, as he does and other people do, I think that it's a fair thing for our businesses that are here all the time to expect that even people that are in a temporary facility or location also are required to get that license if they're here on a really regular basis. Church Street Market, for example, creates an environment where there is a good variety of businesses coming and going. It's a great incubator within our community for small businesses. Some of those have little tiny stores, and they're there very regularly. Some come and try out their concept of a business and have a temporary location out on the deck for a while. And they might be there, for a month to see, is this going to work? That might be the kind of thing where we say, all right, that's worth, giving someone that opportunity. Again, that 4 weekends kind of a thing. I think those are my primary questions. Everything else was answered, the $25 fee for the itinerant. I did want to indicate that is once a year, and I can't read my writing. And maybe we should be indicating that that's once per calendar year, to be specific.
I have one quick comment. I know last year Tanya and Michelle worked on actually identifying the owners of properties where itinerant vendors set up and having the owners send those people in for business licenses. That's worked really well. So instead of counting on the itinerant vendor, they've identified the locations where, like Mr. Gass, where the itinerant vendor set up and have the owners, because clearly the owners have to give them permission to be there, tell them to come in and get a business license. And I know that's worked well for a lot of itinerant vendors this last year.
And another thing, as far as, the expo and things like that, I was at the expo. I didn't go table to table and make sure everybody had a business license. That's not the kind of business-friendly person I am, because I am very business-friendly. However, there are times that you can capture those people who actually come in on their own and say, hey, do I need a business license? And we discuss it, and we decide if they do or they don't. If there's a craft fair going on, I won't know about it. It'll probably be on the weekend or at night. I would never charge somebody who's selling, yarn animals and make them have a business license. I mean, a lot that goes into ordinances and things is a little bit of common sense, and I think that my department does a pretty good job. Tim's doing a phenomenal job with that, and we work with people very well.
Well, people have called and said, I'm setting up a Tractor Supply this weekend, do I need a business
Right.
license? And we say, if you're just here for the day,
Then no.
No.
Yeah. So we aren't trying to go after every single person that's trying to make a buck.
And
I
I'm
will
very
say
glad to
it's
hear
not
that.
proactive at all, it's reactive.
It's
So if people
reactive.
come in, we talk to them, there has yet to be except for the itinerant vendors, there has yet to be a proactive push to go capture business license
Right.
money.
Right, because 100 of those licenses still doesn't add up to very much money for the town.
Oh, exactly.
So,
$25 isn't that much money.
right. All right, well, that's all that I had to say. I would like to see that one time per year increased, just so that we're covered for those types of vendors that are coming here or testing the waters for a new business and so forth.
Thank you. I see.
My name is still Jerry Powers, and I live here in the community. I agree with Ray. I've got a question, a basic question. What's the purpose of this ordinance? Is it to make sure that people are paying GRT?
Well, we've had this ordinance forever, since,
I know, but
it
what's the
began.
purpose of it?
The purpose is because you have to pay taxes. We have to make sure that people are paying taxes.
Yeah.
That's, how we get GRTs, is to make sure that people are paying taxes. And along with that, it's also good to make sure that businesses are being accountable, and we know what businesses are out there and what they're selling. What if they're wanting to sell, I don't know, explosives or something? I don't know, it's just a far stretch. But it helps us know what's going on. if we were to happen to have our own expo or something like that, maybe we want to invite the vendors, you know. There's a lot of things that go into this ordinance of why you want to have a business license. Every municipality has a business license ordinance.
I guess my question is this to make sure that people pay GRT in Edgewood so that you capture that revenue instead of them paying it in Albuquerque?
Well, services only, we're not gonna capture that. We're not gonna get their GRT. That's where they pay taxes is where their office is at. So if you are wanting to get business licenses from the contractors that you're talking about, we're really only getting the money from the business license. We're not getting any of their GRTs. But those that are housed in Edgewood, yes, we would get their GRTs.
So the subcontractors that come in, as Ray's saying, and they build a house here for the general pays the GRT, and they're probably from somewhere else.
They probably are.
And the subs are non-taxable transaction people, so they're never going to pay.
We never see them. We don't go to a house that's being built and go after anybody.
So you're looking only for Edgewood-based businesses? Okay. What about home-based businesses? Because, you know, that can...
Home-based businesses are the same thing. They have a home, it's a license for a home-based business.
So what if they make a product like a clay pot and they market those through Santa Fe, and then the shop up there actually sells and pays the gross receipts tax? Why should somebody like that have to have a license when they're not paying GRT?
It's different for everyone. It would be hard to go to every single home-based business and find out exactly what's happening. I mean, we may only make the $25 off of it.
Yeah, I guess my take on it is I'm really for encouraging business, and you know, it's a risky enterprise to set up a new business. Most new businesses fail, and I'm with Ray, and I think the town has stated that it's pro-business, and this is kind of an anti-business kind of
But
ordinance.
we've always had this ordinance.
I think saying that you've always had something that's not a good idea is not a defense.
So you don't think anybody should need a business license?
No, I don't. In Texas, they don't even need contractors' licenses, and as a result, their construction costs on houses are about 30% lower than New Mexico.
I will say, just really quick, one of the biggest reasons people come in for business licenses is because the bank requires them to have a business license.
A bunch.
So that's how we capture most of the people who come in. I guess if they go and try and start a business account, the bank requires them to have a business license, and that's not our
I've been in business since I was
requirement.
18 years old, and I've never had a bank ask me for a business license.
Oddly
ever.
enough, that's why they've come
Yeah.
in.
They have.
So I don't know where that came from.
I don't either, because like I say, I've been in business since I was 18. I've never had any bank ask me for a business license. So I'm just saying that I think if your stance as a town is pro-business, that this is something you might want to revisit, especially for startups, new businesses, home-based businesses. You know, people don't have a lot of capital, and it may be only $25, but it's also the renewal and the hassle of having to do it. There's enough red tape, I think, for new business startups and for business in general. So those are the gist of my comments.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And counselors, I'll entertain a motion, and then we can discuss it.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2019-02 with the changes that were discussed. In section D, change constitute to require. And under section 3, change which may or may not have a CRS number to do not have a CRS number. And I would also like to change in section 1, under C, I would like to see that be 4 times a year.
Got a second?
I don't know how you regulate that.
No second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve ordinance 2019-02 with several changes as set out by Counselor Abraham. So let's discuss it. So I don't think under definitions, C, the one time, that just basically, what I'm hearing, the discussion here, okay, so it's one time a year or more, you need a business license. It's not 4 times, then you need a business license. Although I see that's what people are asking about. I'm kind of the opinion that, like with the subs and that, I understand what they're saying there, but they're probably going to come and go and nobody will ever even bother them. It's the thing where if you have all these exemptions in there and stuff, then you'll have people coming in to see them to try to get it, and they'll sit there and waste their time trying to qualify for one of those exemptions. I think what I'm hearing back and forth here is that they get a lot of people in, and they could, like, the less exemptions they have, the easier it is to convince them to get the business license. The ones that are itinerant or whatever, I mean, the contractors, the subs and that, I think they'll come and go, and even the people at the trade or craft fairs and stuff like that, and they'll probably never have anybody even ask anything of them. So that would be my take on it. The switching the may or may to do not have, I think that was a good change. Counselor Abraham, you made your points. Counselor Jaramillo, you seconded. What do you think on it?
Mayor, I do have a couple of discussion points. I agree with Linda that we should state in section 1C per calendar year or per fiscal year, whatever year the business license is on, I would say. Be consistent with that, just to clarify. And then I agree with the 4 times a year, more than 4 times a year. That would allow them once a quarter to sell, but if they went over that, then they would need the license. And then also in section 1, item C, where it says on that last line, sell products more than 4 times per calendar year, for example, I was wondering if that really should say goods or services.
Which one are you on?
C, because products really just means goods, but normally what I see is, goods or services included together. So section 1 and then C on the very last line where it says sell products, I'm thinking that products should really be saying goods or services. And is the business license on a calendar year or fiscal?
Calendar year.
Calendar. Okay. So we could take turns discussing this, and then I could make a motion, or I can make a motion to make
Hang on,
those
we've got
2 changes.
an overriding motion here. So, so your changes would be products to goods or services,
Mm-hmm.
and add in calendar year.
Right.
Counselors Abrams or Holly, want to say anything to it?
I like the changes that Counselor Jaramillo had about per calendar year and goods or services. However, I'm wondering if we change 1 time a year to 4 times a year, how are we going to enforce that? We're going to have to keep a list of who we talked to, when they were here, and I think that's going to get pretty
Are
complicated.
they on 2 or 3?
Right. So I'm leaning towards, I'd prefer once a year. I think that'd be a lot easier to monitor. And like you said, you're not going to be at the craft fairs.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Counselor Abrams?
I'm kind of jumping back and forth between once a year or more. And I do agree that, who's going to hold the list? Who's going to keep that list? how are we going to keep that list? I mean, it's certainly not on your honor. I mean, if someone comes in and sells something once, that's great. If they come back and sell something again, well, maybe they've got a commitment to making that into a business. I don't see a problem with getting a business license. I've gotten business licenses multiple times for different things that I was involved in. As has been said, things don't pan out always. And if you're going to make an investment in a business, $25 is minor. So I tend to go back to the once, if you're going to do it more than one time, it's going to be a business, maybe.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question then.
Yes, Counselor.
Who's keeping track of the one time? Didn't you say that for itinerant vendors, you're kind of holding the property owner responsible? So wouldn't they know how many times they've let a particular vendor come?
Mayor, may I answer?
Sure.
Coordinator?
We don't rely solely on the property owner. If we see somebody that's been parked there multiple times, then it's time to stop by if we haven't seen them come in. So a lot of what we do is reactive, like 95% of everything we do is reactive. There is no way to capture everybody.
Right.
There's just not. But I do have to agree with, it would be really hard to figure out, and even for the business owner themselves, they don't know what events they're going to a year in advance. So I don't know. I just think that doing the 4 times a year would be hard to figure out because we wouldn't be able to keep track, we wouldn't know. So, but it's completely up to you guys, however you want to do it.
Well, the example that Linda gave was like somebody wanting to come every weekend for a month at Church Street Market to decide, is this going to work or not? And it may be the chair massage lady or the toenail painting lady or whoever's there, but they need to see, if I do this consistently for a month, are people going to still come? And, so maybe it's, that's where I see it. She made a very good point for that person who wants to do it, try it every weekend for a month.
So as far as Church Street Market, they require their vendors to come and see us. So they have to get a business license or else they'll tell them sorry. Yeah. So.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, counselors, I've got a number of corrections and changes on here. How about I go through them and we get a sense from you all what we change or leave in or whatever, so we can wrap up the thing. We've got a motion. So basically, start at the top here. Ordinance is spelled wrong. We need to get that fixed. Under Section 1, Definition C, removal of male or female. Good with that? Then in that same paragraph, change products to, on the last line, goods or services. Good with that? And one-time calendar year.
Mr.
So-
Mayor, actually, the motion was 4 times a year.
Right, yeah. So are we good with 4 times? You want to do a, like, straw vote of it, or?
I don't think that's the way a motion works.
Well, then if it's for 4 times a year, 4 times a calendar year, then all businesses, and number D, all businesses acts described above require the purchase of a business license. Itinerant vendors on Section 3, second paragraph, itinerant vendors which may or may not have a CRS number is switched to itinerant vendors which do not have a CRS number. I believe the rest of it is unchanged. So the motion on the floor then is to approve Ordinance 2019-02 with the following changes. Under Section 1 definitions, paragraph C, we get rid of male and female. We change the word products to goods or services. We change 1 time to 4 times a calendar year. All business acts described above under paragraph D require the purchase of a business license. And itinerant vendors on the second page there, under Section 3, second paragraph, itinerant vendors which do not have a CRS number must pay an additional fee of $25. We'll do it on a roll call vote. Public hearing's already ended. Let it go. So we'll start with a roll call vote on that end. Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Like everything except the 4 times a year. Guess we'll have to come back to that one. Aye.
Counselor Holly?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. That away. Okay, next item on the agenda then. Now, this is one we'll do where we start with the motion. Discussion, consideration, action on Resolution 2019-19, resolution authorizing the disposition of Town of Edgewood personal property.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 2019-19, a resolution authorizing the disposition of Town of Edgewood personal property.
No second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve discussion, consideration, action on Resolution 2019-19, a resolution authorizing disposition of Town of Edgewood personal property. Mr. Torres, you handling this one?
Yes. Mayor, Council, so you have before you a resolution authorizing us to dispose of Town of Edgewood personal property. NMSA 1361 and 1362 govern the disposition for us. The property has to be obsolete, worn out, or untangible, or unusable tangible personal property. Everything in here in the list in Exhibit A, which is part of the resolution,
Ilya, do you have the pictures?
you will see. So there's the Ford Ranger, the 2003 Ford Ranger. It was in a automobile accident. Its estimated value is $250. The insurance deductible for us to fix it is $1,000. So it just doesn't make sense to keep this asset around. Just discontinue it. The condition is poor. It was just in a rear end accident, but it's still it's not in good shape even with the accident. The next is a
That's the high lift on the bottom. Council, if you're looking at your list here, that's that high lift.
So we don't have a picture of the 2002 GMC Sierra. That was the old public works, or sorry, road department supervisor's vehicle. It's obsolete. We've since got, I guess, newer equipment from the state public auction and state sales. That one had, if you recall, that one had the flatbed.
Right.
That one's just parked at the wastewater. No one is currently using it. We've deemed it obsolete. Then the next one is the Dynapack, the other roller, if you can,
That one.
right there. That's the old pneumatic roller that we used to use on the roads. It's obsolete and unusable. It would cost more to fix it and make it operational than it's worth. So we'd just like to get rid of that one. The next one is the other roller that we had, the Ferguson steel drum roller. Once again, it's obsolete. We do not use this one at all. And then there we have the utility bed. This was from the 550 that we purchased, and we've since changed that one out and put in a flatbed with a gooseneck so we can actually haul the trailer and haul the equipment around. Instead of driving the equipment miles to the job site, we can now haul it. So this was taken off the $550 we received in public auction. And then we have the high lift, which was on the $550 with the utility bed, and that's what the state used to do their bridge inspections. We have no use for that equipment. And it needs some work as well to make it make it functional. It's just not worth the cost. So this is the resolution's going to be in compliance with both NMSA. We'll send a copy of the resolution to DFA at least 30 days before we do a disposal, and then we'll send, once we get their approval from DFA, we'll send that to Office of the State Auditor as well. And I'll stand for any questions.
Council have any questions for Mr. Torres? Discussion? Seeing none. We've got a motion on the table to approve Resolution 2019-19, a resolution authorizing disposition of Town of Edgewood personal property. You've seen, council, the items that are going to be disposed of. We'll do this one on a roll call vote. Start down there. Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Abrams?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Next item then is discussion, consideration, action on Resolution 2019-20, a resolution authorizing wage increases for Town of Edgewood employees. I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilor Holly.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-20, a resolution authorizing wage increases for Town of Edgewood employees.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2019-20, a resolution authorizing wage increases for Town of Edgewood employees. Mr. Torres, you handling this one?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor, Council, what you have before you is Resolution 2019-20. So this resolution will address a couple issues on the town. One, if you recall, the town adopted a pay plan in November 18th, 2015. One of the main recommendations in that pay plan was that all employees be brought to the midpoint range. And we're using Comp 6 for that plan. So, and then also it gives all town employees a 1% pay increase. So with the attachments in your packet, you can see that there was this was an attempt, so the total cost for the 1% raise across the board, including benefits, is $22,563.08. And then to bring the cost of employees not yet at midpoint, at least halfway to midpoint, would be $28,853.48. So the total cost to do this would be $51,419.56. So the department heads all came together and identified funds from their own line items from their budgets to achieve this. So you can see the list of the line items and the totals match up. And the other sheet you have are employees who are not yet at midpoint. So on that one, you have the employees not yet at midpoint. So if we were to give the 1% raise, so you have the current salary, actual salary right now, the midpoint, the difference between the two, what their new wage would be if they receive the 1% raise, the new difference between midpoint, and then halfway between that. So you would actually get the new wage for the employees, and the total amount that it would take to get there, and this is how we came up with the 28,000, is the equivalent of $9.34 an hour. So if you take that $9.34 an hour times 2080, you'll get the $19,429.96. We always estimate for employee overtime about 10%. Some departments never hit that, others always do, but that's just what we put in budget for. So we get a total wage of $21,372.95 times 35% for the town share of benefits. That was calculated just pulling it straight out of our in-code amounts for the percentages that we have to pay. came up with 35%, so that's where the 28,853.48 came from. So that's where the numbers came from, and once again, just to reiterate, so this would give a 1% wage increase for all town employees. It would also move employees not yet at the midpoint, at least halfway to the midpoint. And then the other portion of the resolution would be to increase the pay plan by the percent increase. So our midpoint is also moving as well. So we don't get to the point where down the road, our midpoint is what current minimum wage is. That way, our wages are always going to be increasing as well, what we pay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Mr. Mayor, I think I have the floor. I made the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you, Mr. Torres, for looking out for our staff. We've got fantastic employees, and I know we adjusted the budget, was it last year or the year before, for the police to kind of make the police force whole, and I'm glad now that you're turning your attention to the rest of the employees. And I've got to say, thank you to all the department heads. From what it sounds like, you all came together and saw that this was something important that needed to be done, and you looked to see where you could cut. And I know this year, when we formulated the budget, we were looking at a flat budget, so we didn't have any flexibility. So I say kudos to all the department heads for looking out for each other, and it says a lot about our staff here. And I'd like to go ahead and approve this when the time comes.
Mr. Abrams, you seconded. You got any comments on it?
Only that I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I know that we have had several discussions, we being town staff and I, with regard to some of the changes in state law regarding wages. And this is a very eloquent, I might say, solution to a very niggly problem that the state has put us in. And I'll leave it at that.
Counselor Abraham.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I have a question as to the $20,000 that came from planning and zoning, and it just says other operating costs. What is that?
I believe that's going to be the clean and lean.
So we have how much money left in that budget?
Mayor, council, that's the full amount.
Okay, so we're taking all of the clean and lean money, even though we have multiple properties that can't be cleaned up, and we're going to use that all to give raises?
Mayor, council, that's what's in your proposal.
Okay. And then how many of these employees, it looks like 2 of them may still be on probation. Are they not?
Mayor, council, in that list, we currently have 6 on probation.
Huh?
6 on
6
probation.
still on probation. Is there a way we could defer their raise until they complete their probation? Would that sounds reasonable to me. I mean,
Mayor, council, it's completely up to you guys. You know, the only benefit to doing it this way was when they get complete their probation, that 7.5% won't bring them to midpoint, but it'll bring them closer to it. So they still won't be there at the midpoint, but they'll be closer to it. So in the future, getting every employee to the recommended midpoint from that pay plan will be an easier pill to swallow.
okay, it just seems like a better use of public funds to wait until they're finished with their probation and then bump them to midpoint. But that's my comment.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have the same question about the 20,000, and my heart kind of sank a little bit because that's tough, right? I mean, we have conflicting priorities here. We obviously appreciate the employees and all that you guys do. You do work very, very hard. And I know in the budget workshop last year, I believe it was, I'll never forget Andrea very politely asking, how do we get people to sort of like the market, and bumping that up. And I remember my answer was it's so hard because it's government, but every year we do as much as we can, and we definitely want to retain our talent. And I do know that the marketplace right now, across the board, everyone is in high demand. And so I do think that raises and bringing people up are important. As far as the 20,000, I mean, that's a big sacrifice too, because it is a high priority to people of the town to see things cleaned up. The positive side that I see on that angle is that there's other ways of accomplishing the same thing. It might not be as quick. And then I also remember from our budget discussions asking you, Tanya, about, maybe if GRT is higher, or maybe there's other funding, or maybe we can do a bar later in the year when you're ready for that step, that we look at it then. So I guess that's, since there's other options with that, I guess I'm okay with doing the raises and moving this money. I do appreciate the approach in having the department heads all come together and find a solution to present to council. I really appreciate that, because that indicates some unity there. And I would have to say I do agree with Councilor Abraham on the probation, and for the 6 that are on probation to see how they do, and then bump them up to the half to midpoint level at that time. And those are my comments.
Okay, so my comments on it would be that basically, to Councilor Abraham, and your concern, Councilor Jaramillo, on the 20,000, we had a pretty good discussion with the judges here a week or two ago regarding their role in helping clean up neighborhoods and stuff like that. And we're not going to abandon efforts to clean up neighborhoods or anything by a long stretch. But what we agreed was that the clean and lean is the nuclear option.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to try maybe a little different tack on it to try some intermediate steps. If we still run into situations, as you said, we can address them. If something comes that just requires that, we're going to probably have to stop and deal with it. And so clean and lean is a worthy goal. Helping these employees get up to decent wages and stuff like that was also a worthy goal. And it comes down to, just, okay, we'll try this and see if this works. This is a good thing here, and I really do want to compliment all the department heads for coming in like they did and putting their heads together on it, and they all sacrificed something to do this. And it really speaks well of our employees that they were willing to do this. I really appreciate that everybody was kind of involved in it, and we don't have a situation like occurred here a few years back where, they randomly selected a few employees for it, and that made a lot of other employees mad. This kind of got buy-in from everybody. And while I know it's not perfect or anything, it is a good step forward at this time. And I would urge that you consider passing it as well. So that's my 2 cents on it. So if we don't have any other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Is there,
Well,
is there
let me restate
any,
that.
is there any way to discuss these 6 employees that are on probation? I mean, are any of you willing to, they're gonna get a 7% increase. Can't we just put all of this in at one time when they complete their probation? I mean, that to me just makes sense, rather than bumping them up now and maybe they don't, complete their probationary period, or, it gives them incentive to get it all at once.
Mayor, I believe from our parliamentary procedures that the way to handle this would be for somebody to make a motion for that, and then if there's a second, then we can discuss it and then vote on that as far as if it's going to amend this resolution or not, and then go back to the main question in front of the council.
I would like to offer a friendly amendment that we do go ahead and give these employees raises. The only thing I would like to see is that the full raise on probationary employees be held until they complete their probationary period.
Counselor Holly, would you accept that friendly amendment?
No, I'd like to keep my motion as stated.
Okay.
Mayor, I'll move to amend the resolution to include waiting on the 6 employees until they're completed with their probation, and then raise them, provide them their raise in their half to midpoint level.
And I second that.
We've got a motion and a second to withhold the raise, is it,
The raise and the half to midpoint increase.
for the 6 probationary employees until they complete probation?
Correct.
Okay. You made the motion. We'll start down there. Counselor Harmio?
So my comments would be, again, just that I do agree with Council Abraham that it's important to see how the employees do and get them through the probationary period. And then, once they're completed with that, we know they're staying with the town, then to implement the raises and the increases at that time.
So how do you vote?
Oh, I thought we were in discussion about that motion.
Well, your motion to have the probationary employees
Okay,
be held up till they finish
Right.
probation.
so if there's no discussion points on that, then we can move to vote on this amendment. Aye.
I'm asking for.
Okay, aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Nay.
Counselor Holly?
Nay.
We have a tie vote. Mayor votes nay. We're back to the original motion here. So, let me think on this. So, we've got the motion. I'll restate it and call for the vote. Okay, so the motion then is to approve Resolution 2019-20, a resolution authorizing wage increases for Town of Edgewood employees. Let's see, we'll start here. Counselor Abrams?
Aye.
Counselor Holly?
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Nay.
Thank you, Counsel. Next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, action on the financial report for the month of July 2019. I'll entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Counselor Holly.
I move we approve the financial report for the month of July 2019.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the financial report for the month of July 2019. Discussion?
Yes. Mr. Torres, I noticed the expenditure of $49,000 for Aspire Hotels. Was this something that Mr. McCall was going to come in and talk to us about, or? I thought I remember some discussion.
Yes, Mayor, Council, I'm just trying to coordinate what meeting he can attend
Okay.
for it. And Mayor, Council, Mayor, do you mind?
No, go ahead.
So, Mayor, Council, so one thing to definitely notice on the GRT distribution, so we did receive our hold harmless portions. So if you notice in July, we were down, that was down to $38,117.60. In June, it was at 38,900, so our distribution was up 500 to 503,253.52. So that was that big portion of that was that hold harmless. We average around 91,000, so we were kept whole with that respect. And Tax and Rev did keep me in the loop and let us know that the taxpayer did finally file an amendment and correct it. And then on the financials, I know Councilor Holly brought up the Aspire Hotel. That was the PPA agreement. And then the other really large purchase this time, well, not purchase, but with payment was for our debt service out of the, out of the GEO bond, which was total of $205,761.38. And that was our loan 4, which was the GEO bond, and then the administrative fees associated with that.
Council have any questions for Mr. Torres?
I have a question. Nationwide Retirement Solutions, what is that?
Mayor, council, so Nationwide Retirement Solutions is a optional retirement for employees, and that's actually, going to be changing. Carla, do you recall the name, who it's changing to?
Oh, that's right, City of Albuquerque made a changeover.
But it's one of our deferred retirement plans that employees have the option of doing. So the amount for that one was withdrawn from the employee's check, and paying the town does not actually match that one at all. These are just with deductions from employee checks that opt into that plan. But this one will be changing, and I do not recall the name. We just received the email earlier this week.
So we deduct that from their pay and then we...
And then we pay, yes, it's similar to AFLAC and several other deductions that the town offers, the prepaid legal, things of that nature.
No more discussion. Ready for a vote? Motion on the floor is to approve financial report for the month of July 2019. We'll start here. Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Abrams?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Calendar review. Next regular council meeting will be the 18th. Town of Edgewood open house will be the 20th from 4 to 6 here, but they can also go to the other police department, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, police department,
And then meet back here.
animal control, the municipal court, and the library.
Right.
For safety reasons, not the road department and not the wastewater treatment plant.
Gotcha. Then Town of Edgewood's 20-year celebration, September 20th, 6 p.m. to dark, and that'll be out here. And we've got Wolfstock coming up on the soccer field, September 21st, the Saturday. Yep. A busy few days in there. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just a moment, Mayor. Under calendar review, when we had our parliamentary procedures, I asked if it would be appropriate to bring up a couple of things or things that we may want, the individual counselors may want to see on the agenda. And Mr. Van Vleck seemed to think that that was fine. And I noticed it may not be in our list of guidelines for the governing body, but he did say that individual governing body members should be able to ask for agenda items to be placed on the agenda for a future meeting. And so I would like to do that now. First of all, the ordinance that we need to take a look at on how to handle agenda items needs to be brought forward on a future agenda. And I don't have the ordinance number right in front of me, but I did provide it to you back maybe 6 months ago with my suggested changes written on there. And the reason for that is because some of the language was confusing. Anyway, so we should take a look at that ordinance. And then secondly, if possible, a discussion item or even action, depending on where things are at, on what to do with town hall. So I would like to see those two items Yes, the old town hall, sorry. And to have, that on the agenda so we could have public comment on that as well.
And Mr. Mayor, I would like to see on a future agenda, a public meeting on where we're at with the EPCOR takeover.
Do we have consensus to put those things on our agendas? I mean, the current way to do it is 3 counselors or the mayor or staff. So do we have 3 counselors want to see all those things placed on an agenda?
I'm okay with it.
I'm just wondering if it's not on tonight's agenda.
Not on tonight's agenda, I know,
I
but
know.
No, they're
Fumbling
for
through this.
future calendar.
Would that be discussion at a future meeting?
we can do that.
So, Mayor, the attorney did state that calendar review would be an okay place for individual counselors to request
Right.
things on future agendas. So this isn't a violation of the Open Meetings Act or anything. It's just calendar, a request
But we do have,
for.
as you said, we do have a policy in place at this time. And that does require either 3 counselors, the mayor, or staff to put something on there. And that's what I'm asking. Do we have 3 people that want to see this stuff coming on there? The ordinance for placing items on the agenda, that's 1. How many do we have?
And just to clarify, Mayor, inside of that ordinance, that's why it needs to be brought forward, because the
Understood.
language is very confusing. It's not clear cut that
Understood.
there needs to be 3.
But that's what it is, though.
In one part of it, the other part says any counselor can put something
Right.
on.
So we got 2 of you. Is there another one? Okay. How about discussion on the old town hall?
I would like discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I think discussion of the disposal of town property needs to not be in front of the public directly. That's an item for perhaps closed session.
Okay, so you.
Mayor, you could advise Counselor Abrams, since he wasn't here at the training, of what the attorney did state about that.
About the old town hall?
About discussion of what to do with town property, whether it be,
That
knocking.
is one thing that can be done in a closed session.
Well, he stated that the considerations for what should be done with town property should be an open session, and that negotiations of transactions with property could be in closed session.
Well, it's probably best then to go to the closed session first and see if we've got anything to discuss.
Sure, and I guess that's why I prefaced that statement with, if it's at the stage legally, or, if it can be done, we should be open to bringing that on the agenda. But I guess that just depends where things are, the status,
Right.
so.
And how about the EPCOR takeover? How many's wanting to see that on there? Anybody else?
Are we ever going to discuss the PER that went along with that?
Yes, we will
In
have a
public?
time and place to discuss it. Okay, so I will entertain that motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.